guys are live.
I'm Be Sovereign as well, or just on Facebook? Hello, everybody. So, can I ask, is it live on Facebook or Be Sovereign as well, or just on Facebook?
Like I said,
You're everywhere except Be Sovereign.
Okay. So, I'm at the paradise of nature that Rob and Festi is stewarding. And together today, we are going to share with you, with the help of the people around the world who have proven what we're saying to be true, we're going to show you all the solutions to all of the world's biggest problems. And I'm so excited. The last 2 days have been absolutely epic, speaking with these world changers, these thought leaders. So, Rob, thank you for hosting us at your amazing place here. Tell us a little bit about Mandala Springs.
Okay, so it's been an absolute joy and pleasure to connect with all these amazing world changers. And through the whole thing, you can really feel the coherence of what we're weaving collectively right now. Like it's really a beautiful and profound moment for humanity with what we are creating right now. And we're doing it here, live streaming from Mandala Springs. So what we have is a 68-acre and growing, certified organic, certified B Corp forest farm with wild woodland perennial mushrooms and plants as the main way that we are stewarding this land. And basically, you're in the single most biodiverse place in the entire tropical world. There are over 40 springs. There's the big, beautiful stream running right through the middle. Yeah. You've got national forest on 3 sides, boulder fields. It is a veritable paradise. And we're only 7 miles from the historic Black Mountain College, where the likes of Albert Einstein and Buckminster Fuller, where those people in that era came together, the innovators, the leading edge thinkers, to create solutions for the future from a place of pristine natural beauty. So what we're doing is we're taking the baton from them and we are creating literally right now the next level version, our paradigm version of that reality here. And we're creating the regenerative village of the future that is attracting those emergent leaders, the innovators, and creating a container where we can really come up with the solutions for the future. So that is what we are doing right now. And it is an honor and a pleasure to be here. And Food Forest Abundance and everything that we've been doing the last few days is giving me a tremendous amount of hope for the future of humanity on planet Earth.
We've had tears in our eyes so many times over the last few days, because when we start uniting, when we start collaborating and showing people what's possible, most people are not aware, first of all, of what's actually happening in the world. And more importantly, they're not aware that there's a better way, a way that's not only sustainable. That word is, forget that word. Let's talk about regenerative. Let's talk about abundance. Let's talk about thrival. Like one of the folks we talked to was Foster Gamble, who actually released Thrive, one of the most watched documentaries of all time. And we'll hear from him. We just got off the phone with Joel Salatin, an incredible call. Now, Joel has proven the narrative that comes down from the wicked who are poisoning our world. He has proven their narrative false. We talked with David Holmgren and Greg Nibbs. David Holmgren was one of the founders of permaculture, along with Bill Mollison. And we share, these folks have proven everything we're saying. So most people are just simply not aware that there's a way that's not only better for the world, that's important, but it's also better for them as individuals. We have so much suffering in our society right now because people have been programmed and led astray. They've been led to follow the path that is unsustainable. I'll use that word. It's destructive. So when people see that there's a better way, they simply choose the better way. And that's what we are all here to demonstrate. And that includes you, everybody listening. So we're waiting to get online through are we on to Be Sovereign? Awesome. Okay, so now we're going to start out. Yes. Three minutes? Okay, so I'll talk for 3 minutes, and then we're going to go live on Be Sovereign, which is Sayer G and his incredible networks platform.
So, Jim, one of the things that just stands out to
Day more.
Hello, everybody. So we have been having some very interesting and well-timed technical difficulties. The internet just got completely cut off here, which, by the way, has not happened one time
in the last few days. Yeah. Oh no, we've been perfect. So
yeah,
you know, but it means we're doing something right.
We're doing something right. I tell you, we got the solutions to all of it. So I'd like to introduce Helena. Helena is an amazing woman, and you'll hear from her now talk about permaculture from a beautiful perspective.
Today, more than ever, we need the big picture with a broader, deeper look at humanity and humanity's development on this planet. We'll see that there is a way forward that will take us home, back to nature, back to community, back to who we really are. We are human animals that need connection. We need to feel that we belong to a group of people, not to a tiny nuclear family sitting in a high-rise flat, intensely dependent on just a few other people. We need to feel part of a bigger family, of a broader group. Paradoxically, in order to gain that, we need to move again towards creating these community structures that we evolved in. We evolved in intergenerational community, deeply connected between the generations. The oldest and the youngest were best friends. They ate together, they moved together, all of it slowly, all of it as though they were literally made for each other. We evolved closely connected to animals, to the plants, to the soil, to the earthworms, to the water that we depended on. Through those intimate connections of belonging, we developed knowledge systems that allowed us to respect, to recognize, first of all, the diversity that's a fact of life. Every single cell, every single thing that lives is unique and changing from moment to moment. Each and every one of us, never the same from one moment to the next. That incredible richness, that diversity is a fact and a principle that when we respect and live in accordance with that, that's when we will find balanced, healthier, happier ways of living. Another fundamental need is that we do see our impact on life, that we are able to see what we do to animals, to plants, to other human beings when we go around meeting our needs for food, clothing, and shelter. All of this means we need smaller scale economic units, larger scale social units than the nuclear family. We need to come back into the fabric that allows us to see that it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to plant a field, to harvest a field, to build a house, to make music, song, and dance together. That is the vision that I think we all can subscribe to. It's a vision that I think we can unite around across left and right, across gender, across race. That vision is what I gained through deep experience in ancient cultures, but also growing up in Sweden, living in America, speaking 8 languages. The pattern that emerges is so clear. We need to come back to that human scale, and we need to actually be shaping particularly economic activity to suit those human needs that are also the needs of nature, the absolute limits and needs of nature. Because it's the global economic path that has taken us away from our home in nature, from our connections to each other. This economic system started with force. It started with slavery, it started with genocide, and with enclosures in Europe. We were forced away from the land, away from the nature that actually sustains us, that is, if you like, the economy. We were forced away from that into cities and dominated by a global trading system. In the modern era, this translated into a process of globalization that started taking shape, particularly after the Second World War, with the setting up of the World Bank, the IMF, and the GATT, a General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade. This setup was headed by a lot of well-intentioned people, people who really believed that we need to have an integrated world economy if we want to avoid another world war, if we want to avoid another depression. In order to integrate economic activity, what governments ended up doing was rolling out the red carpet for global banks and global corporations to move in and out of every economic system freely. Our experiences in the worldwide localization movement that I've been a pioneer of, and where I have had contact with people on every continent, is that actually within democratically accountable structures, within structures where we actually see what's going on and where we have a voice, but it has to have the accountable, visible structures that ensure that human rights, that justice, that ecological limits are not ignored and trampled on. We are now in a situation where these trade treaties, which were set up at the time that the World Bank and the IMF were set up, these trade treaties have been about giving global corporations and banks more freedom, meaning no constraint from regulations. So free trade is for the giants. Blindly, we have bought into a path of progress where we actually believe that global trade rules lives. Why have we not focused on this need for an economic shift? That is what must be on the agenda today. So, the worldwide permaculture movement is one of the most important movements on the planet today because it is supporting a return to the home of nature, of community, a respect for biodiversity, and with a central focus on creating food security. Now that means localized food systems around the world instead of dependence on one global system. This movement is spreading across the world. It's spreading despite the fact that it's not had help from government, not from media, no help from above. On the contrary, what permaculture represents is the fact that from the bottom up, people around the world are recognizing that they long to get back to who they really are. They know deep in their bodies that we need fundamental change. They know that food is a central part of transforming that. They know that without food security, we have no real power, we have no real democracy. So from the bottom up, this is a central movement. We need to recognize that it's part of a broader localization movement, because across the world, when you see how people are starting farmers markets, how they're starting community-supported agriculture, how they're shifting towards these more localized systems, they are not always under the umbrella or with the help of permaculture. They come again from that deep, innate human wisdom. So I think it's very important that we distinguish between the top-down pressures where our governments, including my native country of Sweden, governments worldwide are now supporting a globalizing path, which means shifting the global population into bigger and bigger cities. It means amalgamating villages, towns, even large cities into larger and larger conglomerates. This is a process that's been going on since the beginning of the modern economy, since the beginning of global traders benefiting from slavery on one side of the world and enclosures on the other side of the world. So when we look back at that system, it is really important that we understand that it was the global players all along. So today I think it's vital that we recognize that we're talking about a system that has been compliance. So helpful, I think, once we see this as a bigger system and we move away from trying to do everything we can to get the big picture out so that we don't unwittingly support this top-down globalizing path, and that we can, in a compassionate way, try to reach people across the world, across the divide of rich and poor, across the divide of left and right, to show that people want
Tell me if I'm right or wrong about
harmony with nature. They want to have healthier, more collaborative communities. They want to have more time. They want to have a pace of life that accords with human needs and the needs of nature. Key in looking at that bigger picture then is that we have the world right now moving in two opposing directions. Both are actually moving rapidly. It is wonderful to see that from the bottom up, the localizing, ecological, human path is expanding very rapidly. It's more to do with algorithms. It's more technology. It's more to do with speed. It's more to do with the way that money has shaped our thinking. Virtually every avenue of knowledge has been colonized. We have been operating on the assumptions of a path of progress that, simply put, take us away from nature and from our own nature. Every child that's born longs for longing, wants to be heard, wants to be seen, wants to be appreciated. When we live in a structural way, doesn't mean smaller societies, because when we're secure in our communities, in our connection to nature, we experience the universal truth of the oneness of life, of the inextricable interdependence of all of life. We experience it. We feel secure. And what I've seen is that when people are herded away from the expanded family and the deep community connections into the cities, they are suddenly thrown into a situation where they have none of that social network to rely on. On the contrary, it's structurally, it's elbows. They have no access to the water and to the soil that is essential for their survival. It's an epidemic worldwide, including increasing suicide everywhere. The dominant system is still expanding. The biggest threat right now is the propaganda for AI, is the propaganda that leads us to believe that the only way that we can quickly create alternative systems is through dependence on the internet. Come together in groups and then come together not just to form the deeper bonds, but to learn together. Please look at our website, localfutures.org. Join World Localization Day to become part of a global family with local food and permaculture at the center. Join us to feel part of this expanding network shaping the world we all want.
learning and working with different cultures to find out what these solutions are and then to bring them to humanity.
I love
work with different cultures.
I love the deep empathy that you can just feel emanating from her voice. I could literally, and she's really tapping into the essential, like, relaxed nervous system, calm place that we want to achieve. Like, where do these solutions bring us? They bring us to a place of inner peace, where every aspect of our life and our livelihood and the world around us and our culture are supporting us in feeling nurtured, held, and as in safe in a way that most people will never feel ever in their lives within the cultural paradigm that we've inherited.
Yes. We've inherited. It's really also been shoved down our throats through our media, through our TV, through our screens, through all these different means. We are seeing things that we know energetically are destructive. So to become aware is what we're all about. The energy, the networks that are creating around the world are so profound right now, my friends. So a lot of people have lost their tribe. They've lost their connection in here and then with people out there. So that's what this message is all about, is let's bring the tribes and the connections back together locally, right? And
Exactly.
it starts too with spending less time in front of a screen. Now, I know how addictive these screens are. I still use my screen quite a bit every day, and I use it to make sure. Oh, yes. And then the next thing we have going are the top 10 reasons to grow food, because food self-reliance, food sovereignty, food security is at the foundation of our freedom as humanity. Top 10 reasons for growing food instead of lawns. Number one, it's easy. Perennial edible landscapes, what we like to call food forests, are easier to grow and maintain than an American lawn. And the abundance that you can have out of your own backyard is absolutely incredible. Take one peach tree, for example. A peach tree can produce 150 pounds of peaches per year, every year for generations. Now, add 20 or 30 different types of food producers, berry bushes and grapevines and other fruit trees, and you can have tens of thousands of healthy snacks produced in your own yard every year. And folks, the food supply chain is radically unsustainable. Some say it's in process of collapse right now. How do we reverse this, and how do we take control? By growing food instead of lawns. And the taste and nutrient density of fruits and veggies that are picked off the vine or off the tree are much better, because they don't sit on grocery store shelves and they're not picked before they are ripe. Mother Nature knows what she's doing. Anxiety and stress are more common now than ever, and gardening has found to be as effective to alleviate these ailments as prayer and meditation. When we transform 30% of our 40 million acres of lawn in the United States to food forests, we will reverse deforestation and thereby reverse mass extinction. We are in the 6th great mass extinction right now, and this is because of the poisons and monocultures that we use to grow food. The UN, permaculturalists, and farmers around the world are saying that we are mining and poisoning our topsoil at a rate of 10 to 40 times the rate of replenishment. In fact, the UN said we only have 60 years of topsoil left. How do we reverse this trend? By using our lawns, our yards to grow food. Disease is the result of the poisons we consume on a daily basis. Everything from pesticides to illusory fast foods. With food forests, we eliminate these poisons from our diet, and we so eliminate a major factor in disease. And my friends, all paths to freedom must include a decentralized, poison-free, and regenerative food supply. Well, we're going to add another one. This is Joel Salatin, America's favorite farmer. Absolutely incredible what he's done in his life. Here we go. On your property, you're building soil, you're increasing life while you're employing more people per acreage than a standard monoculture, while you're making more profit than a standard monoculture per acre.
Yeah, Jim, you just got it. Yes, absolutely.
Oh.
The great narrative in orthodoxy is that you if you're going to be environmental, you have to give up the economy, and if you're going to be economic, you have to give up the environment. You know, there's this tension between the two, and you know this, I know this, Rob, you know this. That at the end, that it doesn't have to be a tension; it can be a symbiosis, and that's what we're after, is the symbiosis and not the tension.
You're stacking wins right now. I mean, it's not just the economic, you're making the land more economically viable. You're not just building soil, but you're building soil that is intrinsically at its maximum, like its maximum life. You know, it's got the most of the microorganisms intact. You're literally helping bring the biodiversity back into the ecosystem. Like, there's no loss, there's no lose in this win that you've created. So my question,
the only people that lose are the bankers, the attorneys, the fertilizer companies, the pesticide companies. If we're gonna defund something, let's defund those guys, right?
Yeah. Yes. Oh my gosh. So here's my question. The most important thing is, like, literally right now we've got a beautiful system, especially in our bioregion, us all being in Southern Appalachia here in this moment. So how do we scale this fundamental sanity on a wide level? Like, how do we get this into more people's awareness and start seeing this implemented on a regional, if not global scale?
Yeah, well, I wish there were a one and done recipe, but we're not making a cake here, and so the things that Food Forest Abundance is doing in this platform, in this space, is part of the solution. I mean, if we're wanting to bake a cake of scale, right? There are numerous pieces of that cake. One is certainly what Food Forest Abundance is doing. One is certainly what Paul Wheaton at Permies is doing. One is certainly what we're doing at Stockman Grass Farmer magazine. One is Skills Bridge, maybe that the military is doing for veterans that leave. I mean, there's a host of these pieces of the pie, not the least of which you all understand, not the least of which is we need to awaken the consumer awareness to demand ecologically authentic inputs, from fiber to food to whatever, ecologically authentic inputs. And right now we don't have, there are people dancing around that, but there's a lot of green speak, clever speak, wordsmithing around these things. Just like organic certification didn't do it. You can't put the government in charge of a program, in charge of a philosophy that they've been poo-pooing for 40 years. I mean, that's nonsense. That's like the fox guarding the hen house, right? So we need to do this, by clever messaging, by attractive leadership. My dad, I remember one time, he got onto some Andre Voisin stuff, some controlled grazing, and he said, one day this farm's going to support 100 cows. And he actually was down at the neighbor's place, the next door neighbor, and he told him, he said, Mr. Tom, someday we're gonna have 100 cows up there. And the neighbor just, I mean, laughed him to scorn. Just, and Dad was a kind of emotional. He wasn't necessarily thick-skinned. He was the man of conviction, but he had a thin. He could shed a tear pretty easily, and I'm a lot like that myself. And I think it's good when a man can shed a tear over, emotional, over, Anyway, I remember him coming back from the neighbor and just being crushed. And he told me, he said, I will never again tell somebody what I'm going to do. I'm just going to do it, because you can't push on a string. You have to lead by example. And so every single example that we get that is authentic and has integrity and is positive and shows we can solve these problems. I mean, one of our objectives here is to actually create a credible alternative to all factory farming. We don't need any factory farming. There's no need for it anywhere on the planet. So let's just get a credible alternative. And I think that idea where what we desperately need is leadership. We need leadership. We need examples. So we take this string and leadership pulls our examples through society, and it's captured on YouTube. It's captured on the media. It's captured on documentaries. It's captured in books. It's captured in magazine articles. It's captured on farm tours. And look where I am. Look at what they're doing here. That's where it's captured. And that's how we pull that string, one person at a time.
One. All right. So isn't that amazing? Joel has shown how to do it in a way that actually increases yield, increases profitability, increases the value of the land. It actually increases the life of the land. I think that's so amazing. So now a lot of people ask me, say, Jim, what is permaculture? Well, permaculture means permanent culture. So a lot of people think permaculture is only about agriculture, but it's actually about all of the elements of our culture. So I'd like to introduce Oliver Studd, and he's going to share with us some things about decentralized banking that I find just fascinating.
Awesome. Thank you, Jim. And thank you, Rob, for inviting me here to this beautiful place.
Happy to have you.
So I'm working with Professor Richard Werner, who's the founder of quantitative easing in the 90s, and better known for quantity theory of credit. And it shows that there's two types of credit creation, productive and unproductive credit creation. And at the moment, the problem in today's society is there's many large banks out there, but very few small banks that lend to small businesses. Mm-hmm. And his recent study shows that as the bank size grows, the propensity to lend to small firms decreases, which means you need those small banks there to give those loans out to those small businesses so that they can thrive. So what we're doing with Valhalla Network, and it's really exciting, is we're establishing a DAO, which gives the ownership of the banking system as much as possible to the people, as well as building it for the people. So we're setting up this DAO, and the mission of the DAO is then to establish community banks all over the world, which lend to these small businesses.
Yeah, awesome.
Oh, okay.
Lend
to these small businesses. And we're doing this in two phases to give the incentive to the governance token holders, and then also to allow us to establish these community banks in different countries, in different continents, to be able to help as many communities as possible. Each community bank we set up acts as a local hub for economic growth. Yeah. It's partly owned by a charity foundation that we'll set up, which means that a portion of profits can be redistributed and reinvested into local community initiatives. So the reason I'm really excited about being here with you guys is because it's a very similar mission, very similar ethos of what we're trying to do. We're trying to build something for the people. And I really think there's some sort of partnership, collaboration that can happen here, that for each community bank that's set up, a food forest can come with it, that can be helped in some way by the community bank, because there's there's great ROI with the food forest, and also the collateral's there, easily visible, and it's something for the community. So it's at the heart of what we're trying to do. We're trying to regenerate the economy at the same time as regenerate the food supply and everything else. So did you have any questions, by the way?
Well, so Professor Werner, he's basically been world famous for his views and his papers on the economy. And I've not been a fan of quantitative easing. And what you shared with me earlier is that the way it was originally intended has been manipulated. Like all of the good things in society is a half truth, right? So I think that from what you shared with me, it's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, so when he invented QE, he meant it to be a temporary measure and to increase credit creation to the economy in a productive way very rapidly, to allow that money creation to be there to help the society. And also, what is productive credit creation and what is unproductive credit creation? Well, unproductive credit creation is for asset purchases, for financial speculation. It doesn't really help the economy. And all it does is it leads to these asset bubbles that eventually, when the credit is turned off and the banks are no longer pumping out these loans, the asset bubble, the market can no longer sustain it because the value isn't actually there. It's just people pumping money into it. So it collapses, causing this recession, causing a banking crisis, because you've got all these bad loans that cannot be repaid. So you've got bank crisis happening, you've got mass unemployment, suicide rate, quality of life goes down. So all these bad things. And what you normally find is that's larger companies working with derivatives and messing around with that sort of thing. Productive credit creation is the exact opposite. In fact, what you're doing is you're lending for new goods and new services, which we find that small businesses, the majority of credit that's created for small businesses goes in for productive purposes, to create new goods, to make services better, to make the production more efficient, and also that money then that's being used to create these new services can then be, the money comes back in because you've got more product, you've got better service, people are paying for that. So you're making a revenue off it that can then be used to service the loan, which means then credit is destroyed. So you've had credit produced, all these good things happen, and then credit is destroyed. What does this result in? Well, you get economic growth, but you get no inflation, which is the gold of what we want.
It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. And you said earlier that you felt like it was a similar mission, but I feel like it's really the same mission, because we can't create the kind of world that we want for the future if we aren't first and foremost decentralizing our financial system at the same time. It's an intrinsic part of the way that we co-create this fabric. So it's really a complete and natural collaboration. And that's what I am seeing with all of these different threads. They're all intrinsically important to weave the fabric of the new world. And the Valhalla project is one of the most exciting.
Yeah, so 100%. And we're not only decentralizing the ownership structure through a DAO, but we're also decentralizing the banking system itself by setting up all these small local community banks that only lend to small businesses in their local area. So that means the bankers in that area get to know the businesses, know what products they actually need to help the businesses. And it also means those small businesses feel closer to their bank, feel like they've actually got the support of their bank. And this isn't a new system.
This is the way it used to be.
This isn't a new system. We're not trying to, we're not trying to invent something and test it and see if it works. The Sparkassen in Germany with 1,500 community banks has made the German economy so successful. So we know it works. And this is, this will surprise you. In the 2008 crisis, not one community bank in Germany needed taxpayer bailout. Not one. Because there wasn't massive amounts of bad debt there. They weren't lending for financial speculation, derivatives, and messing around with
no bubble.
Exactly. No bubble caused by them anyway. So then they could work together because they've got a big network. They can work together, work with their small businesses, offer flexible repayment schedules. So there wasn't, bailouts and bailouts required. So we're taking the Sparkassen, very successful German model, we're improving it slightly, and then saying, okay, great, now let's decentralize the ownership structure and set it up through Valhalla Network. And the support we've had so far has been amazing. We found that our seed round was 100% oversubscribed. Our Series A is filled up very quickly. It's now 75% full, because people look at this and they're like, look, we can see your business model. It's 100% transparent. We can see who's behind it. We can see it's tried and tested, and it's an ethical project. What more do you want?
In banking, of all things,
banking,
right?
Exactly.
And tell me about who's going to own this banking system.
So that's it, the people. So the governance token holders effectively.
Yeah.
The DAO Foundation owns the banking system.
The DAO.
Let's be clear about that. So the foundation itself
Yeah.
is the legal structure that owns the banking system.
Yeah.
So for the community banks we set up, about 75% of the community bank will be owned by the foundation, with the other 25%.
And real
being
quick,
owned by the
DAO,
charity foundation.
decentralized autonomous organization, inherently, just in case you don't know.
100%. And then the foundation itself is run by the token holders. So the governance token holders, which each represent some sort of voting power. So then they can submit proposals, and they're not trying to manage the banks. They're not doing that because that, one, isn't what you want. You want the bankers on the ground, which know what's best for the businesses and the bank itself. And also they're unregulated. You know, the governance token holders aren't the regulated entities. So they can't run the banks. But what they can do is submit proposals saying, where do we want to set up the next bank? You know, what's going to help the people the most? What do we want to use the money for? The dividends are flowing in. What can we use that money for that will help the people and we want to set up? And we'll be growing that out. And also there's a potential that the governance token holders can actually do work themselves. So perhaps they'll do a study for us, for the foundation. They'll submit it to the token holders to be voted on. People say, this is great work, vote on it and be approved. It will then form part of a feasibility study for a new bank. And if everything gets approved and it all works out, the persons who've done that initial work can then be paid in tokens as well. So they can earn out of it. So it can be this system that's really owned by the people, and it's helping all these small businesses, which in turn helps the people. Because the more small businesses you have, the more employment you have, the more actual community banks are billionaire makers. And people don't realize this. They are billionaire makers because the small business owners, which are doing so well and so successful with the bank that's helping them, they can turn into multi-millionaires and billionaires. So it's actually, people should be looking at this like, it's community.
And that accumulation of wealth is based on productivity as opposed to gambling.
100%. It's not me trying to take your money off you by gambling on something and I win. And that's how effectively financial speculation works. It's actually, I'm being more productive. I'm using the bank loans. I'm using that credit creation process to be more productive, offer more services, give out more goods. And that's what's creating my wealth. And then I'm repaying that to the banking system, and that credit is being destroyed again.
So
there's no inflation. And it's really exciting.
Wow.
I can't wait for it to kick off further.
The heart is there.
100%.
It is permaculture in action on the financial level. Like it's brilliant.
And the team as well, everyone who's part of it, they've looked at it and they saw what we're trying to do, and that's why they wanted to be part of the mission. We've had people come in who wanted to help out on design and graphic designs, people who just want to do some research for us because they know that it's such a good thing we're trying to do, and they want to be part of it. So it's a very unusual for a crypto protocol. It's not one of these where you invest your money and you might lose it or it might be really successful. It's actually because we're setting up banks, you're investing money, and actually there's only a very limited downside because the majority of money that's invested is being used as the equity for the banks we're setting up. So if anything goes wrong, that equity is still there. So it's 100% different to any crypto project we've seen.
Man, it's fantastic, buddy.
Amazing.
Awesome. It's great to be here.
Most people don't realize banking and permaculture can be combined, right? We're combining the elements, finding out what's wrong and turning that problem into the solution.
If they didn't get it before, they get it now, because that was amazing. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Yes. Awesome. All right. Now, who do we get to hear from next? David Holmgren. Oh my gosh. Now, David Holmgren, he and Bill Mollison actually founded permaculture. He is one of the most important men in history to show us this system that solves all the world's problems.
I mean, I studied permaculture in 2002 at university. It has driven and completely altered the entire trajectory of my entire life. This bioregion of Southern Appalachia where we live, there are more successful examples of permaculture in action. There are now generations of permaculture in action where you have parents and children and grandchildren that have all existed within the model that this man right now helped to develop. So I owe him a tremendous amount of gratitude. Yes. And I am really grateful that we get to speak with him right here.
I love you. My life has completely changed since 2003 when I took a permaculture course, and I'm wondering what your idea or ideas are for mainstreaming permaculture across the world. as we need it desperately right now. Do you have any, could you speak to that? What would be the first, second, and third things you would do?
Yeah, I suppose over the decades, I've been skeptical about that perennial question in permaculture activism, because I've said the focus is on getting our own house in order and being the change we want. But I think that's also now as you were indicating, we are at a critical time, and as Jim has indicated also, with this squeeze between the constrictions on freedom of action at multiple levels and the emergent opportunities that are happening. And I think the opportunities to do that are in multiple ways, but I still think it's coming from a bottom-up self-organizing way, and recognizing the multiple different forms it takes rather than being restricted too much around labels. So one of the tasks for permaculture activists is to use permaculture ethics and design principles to look around them and around the world and look at things which often don't have a permaculture label, but actually reflect permaculture principles. So that's the deeper task, is not just to spread what we have, but to look and see, using that lens, that deep systemic thinking and the sort of thinking you were speaking of, to look at all of the other collaborative things that are happening and the synergies between those things that I think are the greatest opportunities. And I think it's remains a fine balance between the projection of the positive and awareness of the negative, and that recognizing that different people are motivated by different things. And although fear is not a sort of a basis of good action, getting a kick in the bum by reality around us is, for many people, a step that allows them to sort of reassess and rethink what they are doing. So I see, many different options, but I am skeptical about how to get the message to the people with the apparent most power, because I see them as, in some ways, so much in the straitjacket of the old system that needs to actually fall apart. So it's more building the successor systems in the shadow of the old system.
I'm unmuted. Wow. David Holmgren, like what an amazing inspirational human being.
Legend.
I'm
Yes.
just honored to be able to share space with him. He's like I said, it's impossible to know what my life would be like without him. In fact, I owe his work to the fact that Mandala Springs exists, that the mission exists. I mean, really, truly, so many of everyone that we've been speaking to all weekend, all of us owe just a tremendous amount of gratitude to this man and his work.
And gratitude, by the way, is an incredible place to reside, in thankfulness for all the gifts of this present that we have, right? It's actually, gratitude is more than just thankfulness. It's an energy. So feel grateful to these amazing people, and then that will raise the energy to the next thing and the next thing. So now, Rob, share with us what's next. This is so much fun.
Oh, this is beautiful, because Mandala Springs has this big mission the land, and just to share with you some of the magic of what we already have and what we are creating here. So
I can feel it.
let's go on a journey into Mandala Springs and into our fluency with the natural world.
In the flow. My friends, you are going to love this experience. I'm here with Rob Linfesti at his amazing place in the Appalachian Mountains, and he studied permaculture back 20 years ago. He actually learned permaculture, and he's created a lifetime of showing and bringing the permaculture principles to real life. So Rob, show us your amazing property here.
I'm happy to. So welcome to Mandala Springs. Currently 68 acres with the national forest on 3 sides. We have the beautiful stream that you will be seeing. We've got 40 springs and an entire forest of food and medicine, all native perennial organisms. It's one of the most abundant ecosystems in the world. And yeah, this is definitely the labor of love to really create the village of the future in this location, to really showcase human ingenuity and our innovative potential, our creative spirit, to show how we can build an infrastructure that is in coherence with the land, that is the lowest impact possible. In fact, rather than having a negative impact, accentuating the existing power of this land, the existing energy flow of it, and helping to augment the existing energy flow with the infrastructure that we're creating.
Boom. And that's what permaculture is all about. It's about working with nature. This idea that we can somehow control nature is laughable. Nature is infinitely more power than this idea that it can be controlled. So thank you, Rob. Let's check it out.
Yeah, first and foremost though.
Yes.
So one of the cool things about Mandala Springs, we're creating the village of the future, but it's the regenerative process involves having regenerative businesses. So here on site, we are creating Mandala Chocolate, and this is a business that brings integrity to the forefront. So every aspect of our production process, our sourcing, the farmers that we're working with, and we use wild crafted herbs that come from this land. So this land is a certified organic forest farm for wild perennial plants and mushrooms that go into this chocolate. So we're bringing the whole ecosystem, the financial ecosystem, the business, and the farming and the permaculture. We're bringing it all together and showing how it's all really, truly one.
And you paved the way. So you went through a major process that they said could not be done. Don't listen to people when they say things cannot be done, because that process you went through, you accomplished something that was unique, and the goal is to scale that, right?
Exactly.
All right.
You know, we created a precedent so that you can certified organic manage wild organisms on public lands. And they said it was absolutely impossible, which gave me every excuse to like make sure that it happened.
Yeah.
So I've got something really special to show you.
Let's see.
We have my favorite of all of the hundreds of mushrooms that I like to eat in this forest. This, my friends, is my absolute favorite one of all. Wow. This is sulfur cap, or chicken of the woods.
Wow.
It's a polypore mushroom. It grows right out of the wood. This log has been here for years and it's never produced chicken of the woods before. This is unprecedented.
And look at back
There's
here.
a big, beautiful one growing right out the back. So what we're gonna do is we are gonna harvest this and we are gonna eat it. So here it is right here. Polypore, so it doesn't have gills, and it produces its spores through pores. And the polypore family is wide. Most of them are either edible or medicinal. And this is one of the choicest. They call it chicken of the woods for a reason. You prepare this right, it tastes just like chicken.
Oh my gosh.
Has the same texture and everything, full of nutrients, full of medicine. So literally here at Mandala Springs, we are literally in between my house and the chocolate factory right here. And here is one of the best food and medicine mushrooms we could ever hope for, growing right here for us, for this weekend, for this event. It's incredible. Yeah, go ahead and grab that
Okay,
one.
and I want to share, folks, there's so much food all over the place, and the thing is, we just don't know where it is. I would see that mushroom, and I would think, oh, that's probably poisonous, because look at the colors. So the ignorance in our society is something that becomes one of our greatest opportunities. So this is my first time harvesting a mushroom like this, and I feel so honored. Look at that. Wow. Look at how beautiful that is. To know that that is incredible medicine and nutrients, and there are also so many things about mushrooms and about plants in general that we're just barely You're right, and I mean truly, this is real magic right here.
And so now, now this log will keep producing this mushroom right here in the wild, in its natural state. And that is just the quintessential magic of a place like Mandala Springs.
It sure is.
So we'll go put these down and then we'll go check out our bees.
Awesome, let's do it.
So I want to introduce you to one of the newest additions to Mandala Springs. These beautiful, amazingly productive beehives right here. And these bees, we just got them. I doubled the room they have to grow. We're not harvesting any honey from them right now. But when we do, each of these hives can produce up to 2 gallons of honey each. And there is an incredible, there's just an incredible ROI that we get from these hives that is stacked in all the ways that all the permaculture that we're doing is stacked. Do you want to talk about that?
I do. I love talking about the logic of doing this kind of thing. So let's just look at it from the perspective that most people look at things. How much are they going to get for their time invested, right? These 2 beehives can produce a couple gallons of honey each, so that's 6 gallons of honey a year. At what, 60 to 80 bucks a gallon in today's market, you're looking at about 240, 300, that's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
It's 360 to 400 and some dollars in honey on how much effort?
Well, 15 minutes every few months of just checking the hives, making sure that they're good to go. The harvesting of the honey is really easy as well. A couple hours total.
Right, so that's one level of ROI. But now so we've got a food forest going in here. There's a food forest all over, and this whole area is becoming a designed food forest. So now the bees become pollinators. In fact, there are people with beehives that bring their beehives to farms and they rent their beehives out during pollination season to farmers. And then you've got the idea that we can't live without them. And they're dying because of the poisons and the toxins that are going throughout our whole world. The bee population is being disseminated. So now you're literally making the difference for yourself as an individual. For food security and nutrient density and sweetness, you've got an incredible ROI, and you are literally helping to save the bee population, which is going to save the planet.
And on top of it all, just being able to witness these bees working on a daily basis, just having them right here, I step out of my porch and I'm looking at the bees going back and forth all day long, brings such a joy to my heart that is priceless by itself. So once again, just another way that the value in a permaculture system is just stacked. Like it's over and over and over again. Every element that we add to the mix brings so much more value than we can really quantify.
Yeah.
And that's part of the spirit and the magic of this whole process.
Yeah. Of permaculture. Again, this science is not a hypothetical, it's simply nature. Permaculture is simply observing, interacting with nature, and then designing in a way that brings the best results for us. It's a no-brainer, my friends.
So let's go down by the water and let's look at some of these wild plants that we've got.
Awesome.
So, I wanted to take a moment just to look at our gardens. So last year, there were no garden beds here. And I was using my intuition. So after working with the gardens for so long, I used my tractor and I actually dug these beds about 9 feet deep. And then I put giant old growth oak logs in there and layered sticks, organic material, and then organic matter at the top. And created these beds. It's going to take years and years for that oak, maybe even a decade before that oak is really starting to do what it's meant to do. But that's the point, is we're not doing it for right now.
Right.
We're moving for the future.
Logically stacking benefits for future use. That's so
Exactly.
perfect.
And so these beds are brand new, but they are already rocking. And if you take a look right here, you'll see all of this compost on top. This is the cacao husk from all of the cracking and winnowing of the cacao beans for the chocolate. And it makes this amazing nutritive tea. Every time it rains, every time we water it, it is just loading these garden beds with all sorts of nutrients. And as you can see, the plants are responding how we would expect. And itself provides all of our needs without the need of even having a garden. But it's really fun to grow a garden with the annual plants that we love, all of our kales and potatoes and sweet potatoes and collards and everything. We got these beautiful echinacea flowers. So we're joyfully eating from this garden, and literally starting around now, this becomes pretty much my entire diet. Is this garden and this wild forest. And I make blended soups out of it, and I pretty much live off of that.
And you can feel the life coming into your body. The food we've been eating here over the last couple of days, you can feel the energy from the food, right? The foods that most people eat all day long are toxic. They shouldn't be called food. A food is something that is supposed to nourish your body. But you can feel, when you're wondering if a food's good for you or not, hold it in your hand, take a deep breath, and allow your mind to relax. And say, will you nourish me? I know that sounds corny, but your body will tell you, your mind, you will know the answer. And whatever the answer is, pay attention to that. And when you get used to paying attention to the signals, then your life explodes with joy.
Yeah, even when you're holding it right there, you'll even feel, it will either feel like it's magnetizing towards you or it's being repelled away. Pay attention to those things. This is a principle we can apply to everyday life. This is a standard, normal part of the human experience. When you understand the way that the electromagnetic fields of vibrant living food works and the electromagnetic fields that our heart and our body creates, it makes sense that it's either something that is coherent with and attractive to that field, or it's something that is really going to create magnetic repulsion away. So you can literally hold it there and feel as it being drawn towards or away. And it's a great way to tell what's going to nourish your body and what isn't.
Beautifully said. Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. And science is starting to show this now as a reality.
Yep.
Right, so, all right, let's go see the pond, the stream.
The stream, let's go. So just a perfect example right here. Right next to the stream and along all of our trails, we have this bush right here. It's actually not native, but it's naturalized. And it's Japanese wineberry. It's a Japanese raspberry. And they are abundant. And they have these gorgeous berries. And a lot of them are still not ripe quite yet. Like they're all coming out right now. And just an example right here next to the stream. I mean, right here as well, you have this beautiful plant called the jewelweed, Impatiens canadensis. It's an impatient, and this plant, if you come in contact with poison ivy or you have a rash or anything with your skin, you take the plant and you crush it up like this in your hands, and it creates this gelatin, this like jelly liquid that you just rub all over your skin, and you will not get poison ivy if you have jewelweed. So if you ever get it on your feet, you can even use it preemptively. If you're going to go walk through a bunch of it, you can rub down your feet and create a layer of protection against the oils. So there's so many plants with so many uses growing right here. It's incredible.
You know, 12 years I spent in Costa Rica, and we lived right in the jungle. We had an animal rescue center, and everybody's grandma knew more about how to heal the body than any doctor I've ever been to. Right? And exactly what you're saying. There's a plant here for everything. It's amazing.
It's incredible.
Yeah. Awesome.
All right, and then we have the stream right here. So you want to talk about a priceless natural resource. The fact that we can take fiat currency,
Yeah.
like we can take these green coupons that have no intrinsic value and we can still trade them to conserve this. This is priceless. You can, now you don't really need to, but you can pretty much drink out of this. This water is pure and pristine.
I will.
It's coming right from the source. It's just springs going all the way up.
Tastes so good.
Yep, and this cove, so the entire cove with the national forest, it's 6,000 feet in elevation at the top. So you actually have spruce fir forest, similar to what you'd find up north or in Colorado. And then you have layers of what we call the southern northern hardwood forest, which is like the beech and birch forest, where you can find chaga, which is another powerful medicinal mushroom, and all sorts of things, down into this zone, which is this rich cove ecosystem. It's the most biodiverse place in the entire subtropical world. There are more different plant, animal, and mushroom species in this forest than anywhere else in the entire subtropical world.
It's amazing. And you can feel it. Like, this is how it should be everywhere. This is how it will be as we wake up and we start listening to what permaculture teaches us and what Rob is teaching us. And we can bring it back. We can design it back in. We put like you said, using fiat. We want to turn this fiat system of death back into, that's compost, that's crap. Let's turn that back into life. That's one of the things we're bringing to you here. And I tell you what, folks, it's time. Time is of the essence right now for this.
And I don't know how much longer we'll be able to take this fiat currency. It's in a rocky place. It's very kind of dangerous and volatile. Like, to the degree that we have the capacity to take that and to turn it into these living systems, to conserve these forests, to work with these forests, to plant trees, to plant gardens, to steward bees. The value proposition is priceless.
Wow.
There is literally no value that can be placed on a stream like this that is flowing every day, all year long. This is also, by the way, the third oldest watershed on planet Earth. So this is one of the single most ancient streams of its kind that exists on planet Earth. This water has been flowing here in this channel since Pangea was one continent, and the Appalachian Mountains split the continent in half. And over time, the Atlantic Ocean slowly grew in between, but water has always flown in this channel, crystal clear and pristine in this form.
So, and one of your goals is to actually invite people to come in and to help steward this land, to invest, and then you can turn that into kind of what do you want to do with that? What's your vision with this?
So one of the beautiful things is you follow the stream up, you go all the way up to the ridge and you come down the other side, and just on the other side is the old home of Black Mountain College. And it's back in the 30s through the 50s. It's where the top innovative minds, the people who are pushing the paradigm forward, like Buckminster Fuller and Albert Einstein, it's where these guys gathered. And it's where they came together in a beautiful natural environment, a place that inspires you, reconnects you to your experience of being fluent in the natural world, which then gives you the physiological capacity to be in your maximum innovative state. So in terms of changing culture, changing business, changing financial systems, really pioneering the future, it's getting the innovative people connected to the most advanced ecosystems that exist. And the combination of the two is what truly creates the solutions for the future.
So what came first, the chicken or the egg? Well, what came first, the innovation or the food forest? Well, they go together. If somebody comes here, you automatically rise your energy and become more innovative, more wise, because your mind relaxes. You listen to the sound and the flow of nature and the stream and all the beauty.
So what we're doing is, in the spirit of Black Mountain College, we're taking the baton from Albert Einstein and Buckminster Fuller, and with all of the global tools, everything we've learned, everything we've integrated, we're able to now create the new version of that spirit in a tremendously more nuanced and beautiful way than it was ever done before. We're going to be building a regenerative village of the future, putting it all into a trust so that it exists as that educational village for the future. And this is what we are doing right here at Mandala Springs right now.
Wow, a land trust. So if you want to be involved in this property, get a hold of Rob, and he's got a plan. It involves this amazing regenerative capitalism. Capitalism that actually adds to everything in society. It's healthy, it's well, and the benefits of this, of buying this medicine, which also tastes freaking, it's the best chocolate I ever had in my life. So now you're getting all of the benefits of this, and you're helping to steward the protection of these incredible environments. Thank you, brother.
My pleasure. We're going to keep stacking functions. We're going to show the permaculture model moving into the next level of its evolution, and we're doing it right here, right now.
I love you. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Oh, looks like I need to log in or something. It seems like I'm backstage. Says I'm backstage, but I can't hear you. So then now it looks like I have to log in. I'm doing that now. Hello? Hello, hello? I can see you, but I can't hear you. Hey, Rob, are you hearing me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Hey there, I can hear you.
Go ahead.
Yes.
Share.
Hey, well, this is just really awesome that you guys are pulling this all together. Thank you so much for
Awesome. Success.
calling humanity to their A game. Permaculture, I became a permaculture certified designer back in 2003. I studied with Penny Livingston and Brock Dolman here in Northern California. I had a career in industry economic development. At that time, it was all about centralizing the economy and growing our industries. And my career was over within 9 months after taking that permaculture course. Permaculture changed my life, and it changed the trajectory of my career, and it changed the whole way that I see this world and interact with this world. So thank you so much for pulling us all together and helping us to align on the same page. I don't know how this live stream works. Is there a delay? Can you hear? Can you respond?
So we might just be a little space in between comments, but that's perfectly fine. And we'd love to hear more about what you have to share with us today about your experience, because it's really beautiful and we're grateful to have you here.
Well, it's been what, almost 20 years since I first learned about permaculture. So the first thing was, I was busy, bringing forward somatic-based or body-based approaches to regional cluster-based economic development. And so when I first got ecologically oriented and learned through permaculture, my whole worldview just started breaking down. And it made sense with whole living systems and natural law. It all makes sense. But there's this process, it seems, that people will need to go through as they learn about permaculture and they learn about all the different dimensions that permaculture touches our lives. It's not just about growing food. It's about how, creating fair trade and creating regional, local communications and infrastructure for us to grow food, trade food, for our healthcare systems, for our economic currencies, and I love what I'm learning through this through this broadcast and through the conversations that you're bringing forward right now through these alternative local economies that are based on commodities, local based commodities. So that's the way we ground into the earth and into our livid relations is through local commodities and local trading. So thank you so much.
You, Paula, for everything you do in the world. The other day at Sowing Sovereignty, we were both speakers at this event, and you showed us how to use nitrogen to store food. And it's such a simple process. So these are the type of things that we're going to be bringing to the world, is all of the different ways to grow food, to do permaculture design in all layers and elements of the community, and how to store food is a big piece of that puzzle, especially now.
Yeah, at the beginning of this pandemic, people were out buying toilet paper, and I was like, look, we don't need to worry about wiping our butts if we don't have food to eat. So the first thing that came to my mind was buying as much, and consiguring as much food as possible and storing it. So nitrogen, it displaces the oxygen, so it doesn't. So our food, we can store dry bulk food in 5-gallon food grade buckets with gasket lids. Put a little nitrogen in that bucket, and those lentils or those beans or that rice or that flour can last for 25 to 30 years. And we can get these nitrogen setups very, very easily for about $300 or $400 at the most. And our communities can gather together. And that's what we're doing here in Northern California, is we have regular food packing events. And at our first food packing event, we packed over 5,000 pounds, because food security is not just an individual thing. It's a personal and regional. We are only as food sovereign and secure as we are, as our regions are. So it's time for our leaders in our communities to get together in our churches and in our communities, in our organizations, in our neighborhoods, and pulling together maybe a nitrogen packing system. You can go to my Telegram group and learn more about that. It's for a group of leaders who are putting on these, or interested in learning how to put on these nitrogen food packing events in their communities. I think it's community nitrogen food packing events on Telegram. And there's a ton of different resources. There's a community there of people who are doing this around the world right now. And more people are getting on board. And this is definitely, you know, a part of the permaculture movement. The more that food that we store right now, we can put it into quart and gallon sized food saver bags. That's good for short and medium term food, and also for barter. I mean, food is like the new barter. When we can't eat digital currencies and we can't eat metals, so we can eat food. And I think we're coming to a time right now where food is the currency, is the new currency. So I love everything you're doing with the whole economic reinventions and regeneration of our understanding of what currency really is. Any other questions? Oh, I can't hear you.
So I was saying the currency is basically the stored representation of the energy, of the value, of the productivity of humanity, right? So if somebody else controls that, that's slavery, my friends. Goethe said, none are more hopelessly enslaved than those who falsely believe they are free. My friends, it's time to earn, to claim our freedom by taking the next logical steps. So I like this term, think global, but act local, right? When we do what Paula just suggested, getting together with our neighbors and enjoying time, make this a celebration, make life a celebration, and start doing the things that bring us joy. And the stack of functionality they also provide, absolutely normal for the neighborhood to get together during the harvest, especially in Minnesota, where all the harvest comes during 2 to 3 months of the year. And we get together and we start canning and dehydrating, and then using the ways you talk about to store the food for the winter. My friends, we have a very interesting winter coming up, right? It gives me the chills, and I want to focus on the positive. It's really important that you're aware. If you're not aware of what's happening in the Netherlands and Holland right now, they're having major issues with the farmers blockading all the roads and the ports and the borders between countries. My friends, it's happening right now. And if you don't know that, it's because you've been too glued to the mainstream media narrative, which was purchased and corrupted over 100 years ago. 1984 didn't happen in 1984. It was already in progress in 1948 when the book was written, right? But that's the scam. And that's the scam that we are waking up from, which is such a beautiful thing. So Paula, thank you everything for that you're doing.
You bet. I want to just say one last thing, if I may, and that's to put a plug in, because I'm in a variety of different groups. I'm a whole systems designer, so I'm in some, local groups. I'm in some global groups. We're all doing various different things, working on different initiatives that are helping to bring us all together on this planet. But when I met you down at Health Freedom for Humanity, Alex Zeck's fundraising event was fantastic. I got involved with your permaculture design community, started taking the classes that you're offering for food forest abundance with Alan, and I started having so much fun, and it just brought back little Pola. I just was gleeful. The whole energy, the whole idea. It's the most fun group that I'm in, and it has the most draw for me. And so, really, being our way back to balance is bringing joy, and is bringing harmony, and is bringing our hearts. and Food for, and Matt's group, Matthew, Britt's group. I mean, every single thing you're doing, Jim, is just bringing my heart forward and helping me to just feel stronger and safer in this world, because these are beautiful minds and hearts that are operating from the bottom up, from nature's laws, and who understand living principles and the very thing that connects us with our earth and with our creator through our hearts. So blessings on you, and thank you so much. And I want to invite everybody to join Food Forest Abundance and get on board, because we can do this together. And that's, in fact, the only way we are going to. So thank you, Jim, for bringing your A game to this entire world. And Rob, thank you so much for putting it all into practice and showing us how to do it.
And it truly is the tribe coming together, and finding that intrinsic joy that we get when we are co-creating the future, preserving our food, doing all of it.
It's
So
fun.
It's so much fun.
It's fun that brings in all of the other elements of fun, right? It brings in a fun future. It's not short-term fun that actually destroys. It's long-term fun that builds as we're doing it.
I make chocolate bars.
I know.
I take the wild herbs and mushrooms from the land and I preserve them in this, I suspend them in the fats of the chocolate, where all of the nutrition is there forever. And it's beautiful. Yeah. So how can we continue to connect with you after this live stream? How can we keep the community involved with your work?
You're looking for contact?
Yes.
Well, you know what? I'm right in the process right now, as many of us are, is like rebranding and reorganizing, because there's so many different things I'm doing. Working with Michael Petrano on the private leadership, private societies leadership council, and working with you and helping, the global food, permaculture food movement that's happening. And let's see here, I'm an Akashic record reader. So it's like, some of these new channels, these new connections with all that is, was, and ever will be, that's on our side and is supporting us. This is, there's so many different dimensions in which this is all happening. And I'm right now in the process of bringing cluster-based economic development and reframing that to not a global model, but to a localization, a true bottom-up localization model. So I'm pulling all my work together right now. I don't know, I could send you to innate-intelligence.com. That might be a place you could go. That's live. It's a site I developed, an artful site that I developed, bringing philosophy together about how, what I believe is one of the most important things we can do right now is really come back to balance within ourselves first and foremost. And that starts with our own self-regulation of our body-based biological systems, and are taking full self-responsibility for every thought, word, action, deed, and emotion. And when we start to come back home and we start to regulate our own biological body-based, our own natural innate systems that are over 4 billion years old, right? We have nature on our side. We've already survived 5 mass extinctions. We have the wisdom and experience to survive the 6th mass extinction that we're in right now. That's down in our brain stems. It lives in our hearts. We're trinary systems. We can beat the binary AI systems any day. We have so much more inside of us and so much more access to Creator, Earth. We got this. So maybe my-self-healing.com. I also do ozone and oxygen therapies and somatics. You bring it all together. We're all self-healers. So I'm going to have a new website. It's going to be Innate Intelligence Trust, because I'm now in a private common law irrevocable trust. It's a private-based spiritual ecclesiastical organization. It is out of the legal jurisdiction and onto the land and soil. I'm up on land patents. This is the way we're bringing it all together, as we're going from the quote, what we thought was the public side, into the new private the public side really is a private side. The
Thank
thing we think
you.
is government, you know? So anyways, I
she
could
hear
keep
me?
going on. Thank you for inviting me, and
Okay,
blessings on
thank
this
you
Thank
so
you
much,
broadcast.
so
Paula.
much. Make sure to put the link to your Telegram group in the chat,
Yeah.
and so that everyone can join and learn about what you're doing there, because it's amazing.
Yep.
Got it. On Be Sovereign?
And is she still, I can't hear her anymore. Is she still talking? No. Oh, okay. So I want to say thank you so much to Paula. And there are two things that I'd like to share. One is Paula brought up Alec Zek. So Alec and I are dear friends, and Alec and also Dr. Andy Wakefield and several other people. We've actually just from 2 days got 12 hours of content.
Unbelievable.
So we're doing a special session where we're going to bring in another group of incredible world changers and thought leaders. And we'll have that out as soon as we possibly can. It'll probably be about 7 to 10 days. And we will then be bringing Dr. Andy Wakefield, who created Vaxxed, one of the most important films of all time that literally woke up the masses, and Alex Zak, who is very detailed in his understanding of what's actually happening right now, and many more. So thank you, Paula, and there's a lot more to come. In fact, now up next,
this is special.
this is a big one.
We've got none other than Foster Gamble, the creator of the Thrive Network. Absolutely amazing human being. And what he has just created is the solution, because we've had all these talks with all these different people who hold a piece to the puzzle. And what Foster has created now is the solution to bring all of these pieces, a network for the networks around the globe, so that we can start to leverage each other's special magic in the creation of an even more coherent tapestry for future generations. It's amazing.
It's truly epic. So Foster, take it away.
Okay, well, this is so inspiring. I could listen all day to this kind of stuff. I'm so appreciative of what each one of you is doing. You know, when we kind of stand back and look at the big picture, I am a firm believer that humanity is born to thrive. And then when you start zooming in on it, you know, clearly the food, the water, the truth, you know, honest money, these are the fundamentals, and freedom empowers it all. What we really felt at Thrive was most needed that we could potentially offer was an independent, decentralized network for networks, a new exchange platform for solutions that are based on truth, on freedom, and on non-aggression. So our vision is ethical solutionaries collaborating globally constitute, just as Jim was saying a moment ago, a mycelial network of effective activism. I believe this, what we're building here, is the greatest grassroots, pun intended, activism dynamic in the history of humanity. And, you know, we all know the power of a single bee when it's being violated. Then imagine the power of a swarm to change the behavior of whoever is violating them. And then imagine a network of swarms worldwide. So when the efforts and the integrity of a group like Food Forest Abundance and the other groups that I'm just hearing about now combines with those of a movement like Thrive, then health and truth and freedom expands geometrically. Then imagine this with hundreds of thousands or millions of groups worldwide. So that's kind of the context. What I'd like to give you is a brief visual glimpse of what we're doing with the Thrive Solutions Hub. So people are always asking me, and I'm sure they're asking you guys as well, out in public. So what can we do in the face of this, you know, seemingly monolithic, all-powerful, coercive totalitarianism? What can we do? We can build these alternatives, and on a very practical level, we can be ready to defend them. So what we're offering is what we call the Thrive Solutions Hub. It's a decentralized tool for global collaboration where we've spent years, over a decade, coordinating people from all different, what we call the 13 sectors. And then furthermore, what we're offering, which is quite unique in this whole networking kind of social media area that's emerging, is we're offering very experienced coaching on key skills to be successful. And what I mean by that is skills in organizing a group, clarifying your purpose, making harmonious decisions, how to resolve conflict when it arises, because it will arise, how to counter infiltrations, how to create whole system strategies. And by that, one of the most unique things we do is that if a group is working on a particular issue, particularly if there is resistance or suppression, then they can organize by sector. So the lawyers are already organized, and the scientists and the doctors and the media people, relations people, artists and so forth. So you can bring together the talent from your community, either local or virtual community. You can bring all that to bear very quickly and create huge successes. We've had tremendous successes with this model worldwide. So we see the network for networks as our best shot at a free and thriving world. So these are the sectors that we organize by in a two-dimensional form. And you see these inner circles are what we call levels of engagement. And this has been a real breakthrough to empower activists who end up oftentimes in the wrong role. And what this means is some people are really drawn toward meeting immediate needs, actually feeding your community or doctoring in Africa, feeding people in a homeless shelter or something like that. Other people are more drawn naturally, their talents go to a systemic change. And the better systems you have, the better immediate needs are going to be met. But then there's a third one, a really important one that all of you are really aware of, which is working on worldview itself. Because the more accurately your worldview is aligned with the unified field and the reality that is emerging, the more you're going to have accurate systems that are nonviolent, that are holistic and so forth. And the better systems you have, the better you're going to be meeting immediate needs. So here's a little glimpse of the actual platform that we're offering. This has been in beta testing for over 9 months, and people are loving it. We're improving it every day, and we're about to open to the public in the fall. But I invite anyone who is watching this to contact me through info@thriveon.com. And it's by invitation only, but if you're watching this and understand what this is going on, we're expanding the invitations dramatically just this month. We're inviting in a lot of very large groups, and everyone who's responded so far is in and really enjoying it as they're learning to operate it. But I've always wanted, my entire life, I've wanted to have a dashboard, where I could watch what's going on in the world, not only in the problems, but in the solutions, and then choose how I want to connect with different people and offer support into their networks. So everybody has their own individual customized dashboard where you have a feed, and then you have on the right-hand column, you'll have all sorts of buttons that you can access to do particular things. So this here, the one Thrive Shared Resources is what I described to you. This one, Network for Networks, is the one I'm actually most excited about. Imagine if you could, just with a click of a button, send an announcement about an exciting new film that you're issuing, or a scientific paper that's coming out, or an agricultural breakthrough or something like that. Imagine if you could, with a click of a button, send that instantaneously to the coordinators of all the other groups worldwide in the Solutions Hub. Now, they have all filtered what they want to receive by the sectors that they're particularly interested in, whether it's environment or justice or economics or whatever. But more and more people are wanting to access all different sorts of sectors, because the solutions are all based in freedom. They're all based in scientific and ethical principles, not in politics. So that's the network for networks. Okay, then this is the shared resources page that's sorted out by sectors. Then another function is that you can find people by region or by sector or by issue anywhere in the world. There's a calendar where you have filtered for what sort of events you want to see. And then all those events will show up in your operative calendar. We have encrypted video conferencing, which turns out to be a very important part for people. This was a recent call that we had with our team in the encrypted conferencing space. We also have encrypted messaging and encrypted document creation and sharing. We have a community center. This isn't just an archive, it's an alive global meeting place, but it's not just a social network. We're not interested in more films of dancing cats and so forth. We're interested in providing an empowering platform for people who already know that they want to be actively involved in the solutions and they want to do it on an ethical basis. And I want to just quickly go over this. This is a strategic perspective that I have learned over 50 years of successful activism in my own life, that this is the flip side of you guys know when you're creating the healthy alternatives, you simply follow nature's principles and let people know that it's available. But how do you actually obsolete the suppressors without fighting it? So this is what's happened in a lot of our Solutions Hub groups is people recognize a problem, then they organize by sectors to take on that problem. Then they make sure that their worldview is coherent, ultimately based on the universal morality of the non-aggression principle. And then the sectors go about doing their research. The scientists go do their thing, the lawyers begin cases or notices of liability, whatever it is that's needed. Economics experts follow the money, find out what's going on, because what we found is in every big lie that they're trying to hide, and then when you get to the bottom of that, there's a seed truth. There's a natural seed truth, like organic farming rather than GMO and pesticides and herbicides and all that kind of stuff. There's a seed truth. And once you get to that, then you can use your media, and there's more and more truth media emerging. You can use your media specialists to begin a global campaign or a local campaign, whatever's needed. And then you can use petitions, protests, and so forth that you've gotten from the shared resources. And then you can create critical mass actions, nonviolent non-participation, boycotts, divestments, notices of liability. And lawsuits tend to be the ultimate kind of coup de grace. I'm not a huge believer in our government justice system. And in the meantime, we've had lots of successes when we've got our case together, and we work closely with Bobby Kennedy and with Del Bigtree and with David Martin, Scott Street, and many others who are using the legal system as effectively as one can in a corrupt system. Okay, then when people have success stories, we encourage them to post it, just as I said before, because it keeps you going and inspires other people. So that is, in essence, what we're offering to the public as a decentralized, secure, private platform where people can connect with ethical solutionaries worldwide. And it doesn't go obsolete when we actually win, when we turn this thing around, which is coming quite soon. This platform will still be a fantastic tool for simply organizing the emerging solutions and the successes that come with it. So I will stop sharing at that point. I thank you for your time and really am thrilled to be able to participate in a group like this, where every single project that I'm hearing about is an example of exactly the type of ethical solutionaries that are now finding each other worldwide.
Oh. Here we go. Yeah. Foster Gamble.
Yeah.
What an incredible human being. Just really, really grateful to have his network, to have the opportunity to work with somebody who's already had such a tremendous impact on our community. Thrive, his documentary has been viewed hundreds of millions of times.
Yes.
At this point.
It was one of the most downloaded and watched documentaries of all time. So thank you, Foster, for the work that you're doing. It's absolutely a world changer. And Thrive, I'm excited about the Solutions Hub. I'm now on there. I just got on there last week. And the community, you can feel the community. There's all this interaction already. And just imagine when you, right? This is about you taking action. You're watching this, you're feeling something inside of you. Now it's time to take that energy and channel it, direct it towards what's best for you and your family and your community and your world. So again, thank you, Foster Gamble. And next, who do we have up next?
We've got the myth, the man, the legend, one of the original permaculturists in the United States of America, one of the direct students of Bill Mollison and David. And this man, David Bloom, has got some serious wisdom to drop. The way that he frames the reality of permaculture is really brilliant and expansive. So really enjoy talking to David and hope you enjoy it as well.
Just wanted to talk a little bit about the predecessor movement about spraying in Santa Cruz that made a small victory that made the public aware of it. So when you went after them, it was easy to, not easy, but more possible to have the effect. And I don't want to forget that these easy things at the start set things in motion. So I started my part of that by looking at how the county, invisibly started spraying roadsides. And so we went and said, look, this is Santa Cruz. We deserve public notice. So we forced the supervisors to give us public notice before the spraying would occur. So we would know what roads they were spraying. So we knew we were a small group. We couldn't do a lot. But what we did strategically is we had signs that said, don't spray my property, which we distributed not to every household along the way, but one, then skip two, and then one, and then another one, and then skip three. And we knew from the organizational problems that the guys who were spraying from their trucks would encounter by trying to, go through the maze that we created for them. They ended up having to stop spraying because they couldn't actually do it without their personally incurring liability. So then there were other events to bring public awareness to it. Like we went to the highway patrol. Whenever we saw highway patrol pulling someone off the road, we'd pull in behind them. And of course, that would make the highway patrolman quite nervous. And they'd come over to my car and they'd say, step out and talk to me. Oh, I said, no, I'm not going to step out onto this. He goes, why? Because, estrogenic chemicals are being sprayed on this strip next to the road. You weren't thinking of having children, were you? And they went, what? I go, yeah, it's going to dry up your balls. That's the female hormone. It says be a girl. Well, then the highway patrol complained and wouldn't ticket anybody, by getting out of the car anymore in Santa Cruz County, So this kind of education and strategic action that's totally legal, but figuring out from the system how to interfere with the way it's being done creates ease in the forum of giving up the action, because then Santa Cruz had many reasons to give it up. And when you went after them, they were happy to have the thing settled by someone else.
That's great. I never heard that story. Thank you for telling me. That's inspiring.
Yeah.
Well, that's going to give me something new to do next time I'm pulling up behind somebody getting pulled over. I love that. Somebody asked me the other day, Jim, because here's what I said. I said, we will not pay into an entity that we are at war with. And somebody said, okay, well then when will you know when we've won the war? And I said, that's easy. When they're no longer spraying poisons in our air, in our water, in our food supply, and all over the media, in our minds. right? When the poisons stop, that's when all know that we've won.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, to add to that, once again, if you make someone responsible for it, all of a sudden it doesn't happen anymore. So when the brown moth, the apple moth spraying was in California, the same anti-pesticide group that I was part of, when they funneled the money through the Department of Agriculture rep in each county. But we went to the county soups and said, no, you can't leave the authority for that in this guy's hands. You need to take the authority because this stuff's toxic and the county needs to be kept in the loop about what's going on. And they agreed. So we were the only jurisdiction in California where the supervisors were on the hook for any car damage from dropping the malathion on people's cars and messing up the paint, people saying it was, hurting their animals, or running into creeks and going into the ocean, and elevated levels of the pesticide were in the ocean. And now the supervisors had to answer for all these things. But in the other county, it was just the agricultural commissioner. And so he just blew it off. He was unanswerable to the people. He was appointed, in his case. So get someone to have to take responsibility for the action. And that just gives you a lot of power in getting the thing finished.
Yep. It scares the shit out of them because they don't know and they don't want to hire a lawyer. So they're just like, I'm not dealing with it. I love that strategy. All right.
Go ahead. Just these kind of things are the effective ways, standing up and protesting in front of, county hall or whatever. That has a place. It gets the media to look at what's going on. But, I gave up protest long ago. What I'm doing is I'm winning. Winning is all I care about, with ethics. So protesting, it has its place. Other people are good at that. But as a permaculturist, I study systems and I look for the place I can interfere in the system to win. And so that's something to remember, is that systems knowledge gives you the idea of where to put your effort. Teaching permaculture at the Blackfoot Indian Reservation, medicine elder who had invited us was addressing the class. And he said, I've heard about this sustainability thing. Can someone explain it to me? It just doesn't make sense. And so one of our young students stood up and she said, yes, it's so that in 7 generations, people will have the same level of resources as we have today. And Wilbert, he just kind of, stroked his little goatee there. And he said, well, that sounds good, but when are you white people going to fix all the shit you fucked up? Because sustainability doesn't address that. It only talks about not letting things get worse. So regenerative means with every act, with every passion fruit I grow, with every turmeric I make into medicine, with every bottle of moonshine, actually very nice liquor that I produce, what I'm doing is repairing something. So I'll give you an example. A lot of us think, okay, I'm not going to use fossil fuels. I'm going to double dig my whole garden, even though it's compacted clay from years of abuse. Well, you could do that, and you would be very virtuous to do that. But if you're looking to make change and you're trying to do it fast, well, as a permaculturist, you're always looking for where there's a surplus to satisfy a shortage. So you have a shortage of growing space, you have a surplus of space and waste in your community. So when you apply what you know, like Bill Mollison taught me that, he said, don't knock diesel fuel, because 1 gallon of diesel fuel is equal to 176 hours of person labor. So when you think about digging that pond, one gallon of diesel fuel goes a long way, but we can't stop there. So what I do is I make alcohol, which is mankind's second oldest profession, right? Well, maybe the first. Adam was kind of a rough guy, and Eve may have not liked him. So, so alcohol, of course, is a beverage, but what it really is, it's liquid solar energy. So alcohol is made from solar energy, carbon dioxide, and water, and it becomes a carbohydrate. Carbo is the carbon dioxide, hydrates the water, glue it together, you have sugar. So now you ferment it. Can't get more natural than that. You use yeast, they eat the sugar, they poop out alcohol, and they breathe out CO2, but not the CO2 that comes from petroleum, because that is petroleum from millennia past. That plant that made the starch or sugar that we make into alcohol made it from current CO2 in the atmosphere, incorporated it into the carbohydrate, which became the alcohol. And when you burn it in the equipment or rototiller or car, what goes out the tailpipe is CO2 and water, the same thing that went in, not a stew of petrochemical chemicals. So when we go ahead and realize that there's tremendous waste everywhere in our communities, and as we know from permaculture, if you have a surplus of any one thing, it causes three major faults in design. One is it's pollution. So, a cow pie in the field, well, that's fertilizer. Manure from a feedlot, that's pollution. Okay, because it's too much, it's a surplus. And so without giving a whole lesson in permaculture, again, what I'm saying is we have to realize whenever we have too much of something, it's a problem, so alcohol production in our communities allows us to address that. So we get rid of fossil fuels because our cars can run on it. So, if you're trying to have a reserve, dropping back out of the system, unless you deal with your fossil fuel addiction, you are enmeshed in the system. And that fossil fuel dollar, that petrodollar, could be an alcohol dollar. And we've had hundreds of examples in the 1930s of distilleries popping up and issuing currency based on fuel, because we now know fuel's worth 176 hours of work. You can monetize that. So alcohol as a fuel is tangible. It's not an idea like Bitcoin. It's not based on scarcity. It's based on surplus. And it can do work directly. You can turn in your alcohol for fuel, which you can then run your whole house on. You can cook your food in it. You can light your home with it, like everybody did with alcohol lamps back in the start. So once the glaring fault that my buddy Bill Mollison made in his original book on permaculture is he didn't deal with energy very well. And energy really is at the core of everything we do in permaculture. So without rattling on too long, what I'm trying to say is we need to bring energy into our designs. So if you're looking at what we can make alcohol from, I'm in the same town where Martinelli's juice is made. So there's megatonnage of apple pulp left over. I can turn that into alcohol. In the winter here, kelp washes up on the beaches. The rangers let me go down there and fork it into my truck, and I bring it back and I turn the kelp into fertilizer and alcohol, and I sell the fertilizer to organic farmers in the area at a discount. So now they're not using oil products anymore. Almost all of our medicines today, in fact, half of all the medicines in the Western pharmacopoeia start off as a plant dissolved in alcohol. So if you take willow branches and chop them up, throw them in a bucket of alcohol and stir them around, leave them sit there a while, scoop out all the wood chunks and evaporate the alcohol, there's a white powder in the bottom. Dr. Lane, what's that called? It's called aspirin. Okay, so willow juice, dried out and evaporated is aspirin. So what I'm trying to say is almost everything that we use as a medicine starts off as a plant extract, and then it might get modified by the pharmaceutical industry. So many of the things that we use today aren't hardly any different than what Native Americans used from the plants that grow around them. So, there's all this, for instance, brouhaha right now about, the anti-abortionists, having a field day in court. Wouldn't affect American Indians. When I was teaching at a reservation, the medicine woman at that reservation said, "You see this plant here? It's a very common plant. And if you eat 2 leaves of this, you won't have any kids for a year. If you eat 4 leaves of this, you won't have any kids ever. And if you take this herb and you want to end a pregnancy, you just make that into tea and drink it." So remember, people can do oppressive laws, but the answers are really in the knowledge we have that actually are the root of those bizarre ideas they have about control. And the point is, there's abundance, there's surplus. And if we have a shortage of something like access to abortion, there are natural solutions that are in surplus that we can bring to bear. So remember, permaculture is always about bringing surpluses to shortages.
Bumpers will get better.
That's amazing.
Wow. So, I mean, what a brilliant human being. The way that he frames everything just really does shift my perspective. And interesting fact, he was talking about putting the willow in the alcohol and dehydrating it down and having that white powder. That's the very first plant to be really studied and used in modern pharmacopoeia. Was the willow bark as aspirin.
Wow.
So just
That plants have, the natural world has all of the real answers. They do not need to be patented or controlled or any of those things. In fact, I lived in Costa Rica 12 years, incredible time of my life. And every grandma that I met, right, the older grandmas, they knew more about how to heal the body than any doctor that I've ever met. Like, fact, for real. So what an epic group of people that we have here, and we've got more to come. And I tell you, folks, there's a few people. Well, I actually want to give thanks to a bunch of people right now and let you know that this is just the start. We've got over 12 hours of content in the last 2.5 days. And I want to thank Darren Olean. Darren won the Emmy last year for Down to Earth. And he's got incredible things coming this year. And he's the one that has made several big introductions, including to David Bloom. I also want to thank Greg Nibbs. Greg and I and our team are working on an incredible project, which we're going to tell you about here in 15 minutes with the man himself. He's standing right here. So we'll bring him in here towards the end, and we'll tell you about this free cities that are coming up around the world. And also Maurice Obuye and Dr. Stanton. Oh my gosh, one of my brothers. I really admire this fella. And we are going to be bringing his video to you in the very near future as well. And stay tuned. There are more to come. All right. And next,
so next,
and this is my first live stream ever. Like,
yeah, you're
like,
doing, and you're a natural.
I don't like, hey, let's just talk. We're talking to people. That's what it's about. It's just messages.
Exactly. And I'm an old hat at it. This is my second. So I've been at it for a little while longer, twice
my
as long.
teacher.
So we've got Govinda next. Yeah. And wow, what a brother, what a human being. Govinda has created a beautiful network to decentralize health and to bring human health and well-being back to the center of our healthcare system. And he said at one point, he's like, wouldn't it be amazing if human health and well-being was the actual focus of our healthcare system? And like, it should be amazing. That should be basic. But through the Ministry of Health that Govinda has created, has also gone further than many out there in really taking back his sovereignty on a personal and legal level. A beautiful human being, and really excited to have him.
Oh, thank you, Govinda.
Current system cannot be fixed. The current system cannot be fought. And I have to put those two there because I bless their hearts. A lot of people, the way they're approaching this is they're trying to fix it and they're trying to fight it. The solution is that we have to, first of all, remove our consent. We need to return our sovereignty back to ourselves and remove our consent from those situations that have been set up, and then choose what we and how we choose to engage. I'll give you an example. There's a lot of false constructs that we just participate in. We don't even know why we do them. The marriage license, I found this out in my own research. Do you know where the marriage license came from? Well, in the 1850s, a license is permission to do something that's otherwise illegal. In the 1850s in America, it was illegal for you to marry somebody from a different race in the South. So they started issuing marriage licenses for cross-racial couples. And that also gave the state jurisdiction over the fruit of that union. Now, what happened was eventually they found out this was a great gig, because now the state becomes the third party in your union. So everybody started getting marriage licenses in this country. And pretty soon now it's you, your partner, and the state. There's your happily ever after wedded union. Now, how did this happen? What happens is we get into a state where we begin to bring these different entities into our lives by being in the public square. And by being in the public square and then going there and asking for our rights back. No, you are a sovereign individual with the ability to make choices and decisions. And so when you do that and you restore your power, and then you say, now that I know who I am, I will choose to engage with my sovereignty from that place with that which serves not just myself, but the all. So those are the kind of solutions that we are approaching. Now, when we talk about healthcare, the first thing that we did was we recognized that in America, we do not have a Ministry of Health. Around the world, ministries of health are government agencies and everything else. We created the Ministry of Health in the private domain as a private, so it is a 508c1a ministry. And so what happens, the first thing that happens when people come into it is they come out of the public square and into the private domain. And by doing that, we remove all of these agents of harvest that contribute nothing to the health of the people. And what we do then inside that domain is connect the true healers, the true doctors, the true healers that actually care about the people, with those that need that help and that connection. And we put that into a system where the incentives are built in for the 100% health and wellness of the people, where the system itself, the goal of the system is for you to be healthy. The goal of the system is for you to be at the maximum health. Wouldn't that be amazing for that to be the healthcare system of a nation, is for the goal for you to be healthy?
A call about, I don't know, it was about a month and a half ago or so, and Govinda had heard of us from somewhere online, and he said, Jim, I want to help the Sri Lankan people. He is family-wise to the country of Sri Lanka, and he said, how can we help them? And I immediately went to the permaculture principles, and their system is in collapse as we speak. So let's send a little love out, energetic love out to the Sri Lankan people, and really people all over the world that are feeling this crunch that's coming at us from all directions. And he said, what would you do first? I said, well, this is the first thing we would do. We would get some social media influencers from Sri Lanka. We'd bring in, and he said, the Buddhist community are kingmakers. That was his exact words. In other words, they're very influential and powerful. I said, let's bring in some social media folks. Let's bring in some of the Buddhist community, and let's bring in some politicians, and let's meet in a very public place. And let's start planting sweet potatoes and bananas and papaya and yucca and taro in these public lands, and use those public lands as a nursery for everybody in the community, because these crops are things that within a very short time can propagate and become infinitely more. Folks, if you're listening to this right now, is the time to go find out what is best for your zone and go plant crops that are easily propagatable, right? That's the key right now, because the food supply chain is in great distress. And it's very likely that by the end of this month, July, you will know that. But don't wait. Do some research and start planting food. So if you're a part of the Sri Lankan community and you'd like to start this process, get a hold of us. It doesn't take much money. It's really not about resources. It's about resourcefulness, right? So start communicating with your neighbors and start planting food. And this goes for everybody all over the world. Wow. So now, yes, now who's next?
You got Paul Chek.
Paul Chek. What a world changer. This fella has been helping some of the greats throughout our society to be healthier and happier, more alive. Paul, thank you. I'm very excited to hear what you have to say.
Hello, Jim Gale and the permaculture geniuses of the world. This is my little presentation on the last 4 doctors you'll ever need. And I am going to give you a 10-minute show here. Einstein said, if you know your topic, you can teach it to a 12-year-old. So here comes what's very simple but very complex for most people, and I'll give it to you like a 12-year-old, so I'm sure you understand it. So I'm going to share my slides now. Okay, welcome to the last 4 doctors you'll ever need. How to get healthy now. I suppose you know I'm Paul Chek, founder of the Chek Institute, where we teach holistic health. And here we go. Listen, I spent a huge percentage of my career, which is almost 40 years long now, 38 plus years, looking at what is essential to help rehabilitate people from all sorts of things, physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual, so that I could come to what the core essence of well-being is. Through a lot of introspection and meditation and evaluation, I identified what I call the 4 doctors. Remember, the word doctor means teacher in Latin. They are Dr. Happiness, Dr. Movement, Dr. Diet, and Dr. Quiet. So each of these doctors represents a way of relating to ourselves and a set of values that we have to have in order to effectively guide our choices to create what it is that we want in life. One of the most important things to understand is that you can't be a healthy 3-doctor, 2-doctor, or 1-doctor person for any length of time. You can be happy, but if you lack movement, you're in trouble. You can be happy and have good movement, but if you have a poor diet, you're in trouble. You can be happy with good movement and a good diet, but lack quiet or rest or introspection time for your own growth and development, and you'll be in trouble. So the question we have to ask is, can anyone or the collective create their dreams or create sustainability without 4-doctor balance in their life? Well, thousands and thousands of patients and clients later, I can tell you, no. Next, we all need to identify what we love enough to change for. Psychologist Jerry Wesh states most profoundly, when you have a big enough dream, you don't need a crisis. So in my system, it begins with number 1, love. What do you love enough to change for, to become, to grow, to work through the challenges that we all face in any real growth process, life, or relationship? So that's the most important thing. Once we identify what we love enough to pull ourselves together for, and only love zips, we're on our way to creating what we want in our life. And we have to be very conscious of what I call ant-infections, which are words like I wouldn't, I shouldn't, I couldn't, and I didn't. We must also be aware that the words I have to are the words of a child, and the words I choose to are the words of an adult. And inevitably, we have to do some healing and some awakening to create what we want in our life. So our dream, goal, or objective is here. We perceive it, but we must remember that our conscious perception is influenced by our internal environment and our external environment, underneath which we have all our conditioned beliefs, which for most of us are many. So the goal is to be aware of how your internal environment is, how your external environment is, which has a lot to do with permaculture, and what our conditioned beliefs are, mostly which we have to look at self-limiting beliefs. That's how we approach our 4 doctors. So let's look at the 4 doctors a little more carefully. Dr. Quiet represents spiritual development and anabolic rebound, which means your ability to recover from stress, and it relates to the inside of us or the domain of the soul, our inner self. Dr. Diet relates to food quality, hydration, metabolic typing, which means eating right for your individual needs, your specific needs, not following diet plans or doing what other people tell you, but paying attention to how your body responds to various food and liquids, and working with your body to identify its needs, ultimately from meal to meal. What is our dream and how do we fuel ourselves for that? That's our legacy. Remember, everything that you bring in as food comes from the outside to the inside, so the cleanliness of the environment has a big impact on our inner world. And ultimately, if we're eating correctly, we will experience satiation and not have to use pick-me-ups, sweet snacks, and junk foods to get us through from meal to meal. Dr. Movement is, do I work out or work in? Working in is doing an exercise that leaves you with more energy than it costs to do it. I show many of them in my book, How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy. Working on our flexibility, our functional strength, rhythms, looking at what our needs are versus our ability to do what it is that we want to do, and making corrections, expressing ourselves through movement, pumping our body to keep it healthy, vital, and clean, integrating ourselves, transforming ourselves to be fit enough to accomplish our dreams. And exercise keeps the warmth element or the metabolic element alive in us. Dr. Happiness is the chief physician, which looks at our core values, gets clear on what our dream is, our legacy, works on emotional intelligence, mental self-management, our dreams, our creativity, our capacity for learning, growth, being motivated, satiating ourselves at the mental level, and being aware of what virtues we're willing to live to contribute to the lives of others and those in the world around us. So Dr. Happiness really is the overarching doctor, because Dr. Happiness is in charge of, one, being clear on what our dream, goal, or objective is, and being clear on what is happy making for us, so we make sure that we spend time doing it each day or each week, instead of medicating ourselves to try to compensate for not taking responsibility for creating joy. Dr. Quiet, how much rest and self-time do I need? Remember, I before we. You can't give what you don't have. It's a big problem in our culture. We've got to take care of ourselves, and out of love and respect for others, we create the energy and the vitality and cultivate the resources so we can truly be present with and share with others. Once we've met our I and our we obligations, which is our close family and friends, then we can go to the all level. So I before we, and we before all, or we burn out and we can't contribute. How much movement do I need to be vital, healthy, and strong? And how should I eat to fuel my body, mind effectively? Those are the core values that we all have to use to guide ourselves by. And remember, your yes has no value till you learn to say no. And freedom and free will are really just a choice between yes and no. So what happens when you apply these principles? Well, the average person that I see as a coach or a therapist comes to me looking like you see my client here when she came to me, weighing about 220 or 230 pounds as a 5'4" woman. I designed her program for her and left to come back a year later. And this is the girl that walked up to see me. She was my massage therapist in New Zealand. And shockingly, I didn't even recognize her. And she was talking to me like she knew me. And I said, sorry, do I know you? And she said, Paul, it's me, Laura. You're the one that wrote my program for me. And I was so impressed because she followed the program and she entered her first bodybuilding fitness competition and placed third. And I've seen a long string of people make transformations like this using these very clear, simple principles, all of which are backed by a dream. So if you want to learn more about the 4 doctors, I have put them to be healthy right in the beginning so you can establish your core values right up front. You can learn more in my multimedia ebook, The Last 4 Doctors You'll Ever Need, How to Get Healthy Now. I also recorded audio companions that go deeper into each of the 4 doctors that are available at checkinstitute.com in the e-learning section. And also my highly informative audio program, You Are What You Eat, is a very good idea, which you can get from Check Institute or Amazon.com. So thank you. To learn more about what I offer, you can look at paulchecksblog.com. And for our advanced training programs, products, and coaching, you can visit checkinstitute.com. That's C-H-E-K Institute. Thank you, Jim. Thank you all for what you're doing. I have a lot of love and respect for all of you. These principles that I'm sharing have never been more important in the history of man than right now. You know that. And to make the changes we need to make and inspire others to do the same, we need one love. We need 4 doctors, and we need to live and love the way we'd like to see others, and we will have the energy and the vitality to love and care for ourselves, inspire others, and change the world. Thank you, guys. Lots of love. Thanks for doing all that you're doing. Talk to you soon.
Wow. Thank you, Paul Check, one of my newest and closest friends. This man is amazing. He's made a life out of helping people be fit, be well, mentally, physically, spiritually, in every way. Thank you, Paul, for the incredible work you do. And now we're going to wrap up with some incredible words. And also, we're going to introduce you to our friend Alex Voss, and we're going to talk about free cities. But first, I want to share a few tidbits, and I want to call out a few people that have the ability to change the world, combining what we have shown you today and their incredible networks. Joe Rogan, if you spread this message, we will change the world even faster because it's going to change the world. We are changing the world. The Permaculture Network and the Freedom Lovers, which are included, of course, in the Permaculture Network, and you're already doing it. We would like to invite you to engage with us and share this message in a way that's actionable. Tony Robbins, I've been a big fan of yours for a long time. I've been to UPW and Business Mastery. I've read all your books. I would really like to encourage you to speak out with your full-throated voice, even though you've had some surgeries on your throat. I know you've still got that voice, Tony. So get a hold of me and let's share this message with your network in a way that brings them in. And Lex Friedman and Russell Brand, same for you. You guys can change the world. And one of my favorites, Vandana Shiva, I would love to chat with you. You have changed my life. You have taught me so much. And your courage in the face of this wickedness is, well, it's something I admire so much. So I want to thank you all, you guys, for being so out there and so influential. Now, can you imagine when we collaborate together, we will absolutely radically increase this movement towards freedom. It'll happen in the blink of an eye with your help, right? It's happening anyway. And I want to give you one example. In the last 2 years, the Federal Reserve, through the management of BlackRock, has put into the society, not really, but $10 trillion, right? And that's supposed to be for the United States of America. $10 trillion. If 1% of that $10 trillion actually was used wisely, that would mean $1 million food forest education systems, right? $1 million food forest education center is a massive amount of abundance and food that will literally turn into 2 million and 3 million and 5 million and then 10 million within the first 5 to 6 to 7 years in 100,000 locations in the United States. Now, I'm going to state that again. 1% of $10 trillion would have radically changed and created freedom in the United States of America. The same thing, I'm going to talk to people in the churches around the world. Turn your church properties into productive gardens of Eden, right? The Garden of Eden is not a utopian fantasy. That's the myth. That's the lie. It is absolutely the next logical step. And you who own church properties or who manage these properties, imagine what you can do with your communities. And then the politicians. My friend Chris Messina is running for Orange County mayor on the culture. Now, what does that mean? I'll share with you exactly what it means. He's got a $5.5 billion budget in Orange County, which is where Disney is. When he uses the same resources that are currently being spent on poisons and on maintaining lawns and ornamental landscapes, when we literally just turn that use of resources into something that's regenerative instead of destructive, that one thing will be the model through which every political candidate, from the HOA president to the presidents of countries, can use, which is very simple. It's the wise use of the people's resources. That's all we're talking about here, is growing food instead of lawns. There are 40 million acres of lawn in the United States alone. When we use that resource, that asset, to create abundance, with 50% of that, we reverse mass extinction. We reverse deforestation. We reverse cancer, heart disease, diabetes trends. We end hunger and we end tyranny, all by doing what's best for us, our families, our communities, and our world.
Boom.
Boom.
And it's not even an ask at this point. This is an opportunity. Like, we don't need to, it's like, ask. No, here is one of the greatest opportunities that you've ever been given in your life, with the leverage that you have right now to make the most tremendous difference for the planet today, tomorrow, and for the rest of the future, for all of the generations to come, for your children and your great-grandchildren. You want to talk about a living legacy? Take a small fraction of your wealth, take a small fraction of your influence, and applying it towards creating sovereign food ecosystems around the globe. And your living legacy is assured.
Assured. And my friends, so Warren Buffett, you just committed in a paper that came out to put your $100 billion, almost $100 billion, to where are you going to put that? Do you want to really leave a legacy? And I'm going to talk on this agenda of depopulation, of population control. That, my friends, is the biggest lie, the biggest myth that ever was. When we simply use our resources in a regenerative way, as Joel Salatin proved over the last decade, he has shown that he has more income per acre, he has more profits per acre, and he employs more people per acre while he's building life into the system. So everything we're talking about is a way to regenerate and bring joy and abundance. So Warren Buffett, if you really want to help the world, and I think you do, maybe you're just not aware of this option. Well, now you are. If you use that money to do what I'm suggesting, then you will have one of the most incredible legacies in the history of humanity. So choose wisely. Do you want to leave a legacy of abundance or not? So Alex Voss, I'd like to bring you in here and let's talk about free cities.
Thanks for having me, Jim and Rob. Great to be here.
Yeah, welcome, Alex. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, so Free Cities is a really interesting project as well. So much the way you all are trying to change the paradigm of abundance and food and agriculture, I think we're trying to do much the same thing in terms of governance. So I think no matter where you look, you know, it's no surprise to anyone listening to this that there are a lot of issues. You know, any government that you're living under, we were talking across the world, we're talking in the US at the federal, the state, the local level. There are all kinds of issues. What we're trying to do is really take a step back from that and see if we can change the paradigm completely into more decentralized, sort of self-governing, small-scale cities. We think there are a number of benefits to this model. You know, first of all, these cities are generally built from the ground up. So these are really cities where there is more or less, you know, untouched earth at this current time. So it's not that anyone's land is being taken. It's not like we're, you know, intruding on anyone's land. We're really taking land that's uninhabited and building a city from the ground up, trying to sort of fast track the way that cities would optimally grow over time organically. And then hope that people end up moving to these cities in order to foster a community of people to live together. So we think that's a huge advantage of this model. And then, of course, just the fact that they're small. They can happen all over the world in different scales. There can be different size of free cities. There can be different models, different structures. And these things allow us to sort of figure out what works over time, maybe different. And this is really one way in order for us to figure that out.
Now, one of the cool things, though, about the free cities is that you're not just establishing and creating a city, but you're creating a sovereign governing unit. Can you talk to us a little more about that?
Sure. So right at the beginning of this, when I was talking about there being issues, you know, that at all levels of government, you know, that really is the solution that we're trying to solve for. And the way we're doing that is by, you know, more or less trying to create our own governance model within these cities. And so what we think about when we think about city governance is that it's really a service, much like any other service that you might experience on the market. It doesn't have to be this sort of top-down central planner model that we seem to see in all existing government models. And so what we'd like to do is really obtain the autonomy to develop these cities with a different sort of city operator that runs the governance as a service of this community. And like I said earlier, if no one's living there currently and we develop the city, really the only way to attract people to move into the city is to promise them that they're going to get a good governance service provider. So they're going to be secure in their person and property. We're not going to infringe on their things, you know, their person, property, what they'd like to do in terms of a business or a community or how they'd like to live arbitrarily or unfairly. So it's really the way it's more democratic than maybe we experience here in the US and many other Western countries. And it's also allowing people to really opt into the model that they'd like to live under.
Imagine, if you will, a governance system that exists in totality to serve the people rather than to extract and exploit and enslave them. It's pretty phenomenal.
It's incredible. And now there's a thing called a allodial title, right? That means nobody above. Can you imagine that title? That's what we're talking about here. It's based on ethics and food forest abundance and Greg Nibbs and our whole incredible team. We are actually designing the first phase of permaculture into the fabric of the city.
Absolutely. I think that's exactly right. And having no one group that is above another person able to command them unilaterally is crucial to this point. So while we, the city governance operator, provide a very important function, what's important to remember is that we're in a contractual relationship. If you're unhappy with the service that you're providing, you have a number of options available to you. First of all, you might leave. Admittedly, that is a burden on you. The other thing that you can do is you can actually take it and solve this in independent dispute resolution systems that are outside the scope of our company or under your purview as well. So those outside service dispute resolution systems, they want to find the actual right solution between our dispute. You don't like the way I've done something. Well, the independent third party is going to say, well, what are the facts? Let's actually come to a solution. It sort of gets us out of this paradigm of the government investigates the government and find the government didn't do anything wrong. We've all been there, and it's not really a workable solution. So this is really a way to opt out of that.
Oh, yeah, that's to put it mildly.
Yes, my friends, what you've seen here today, and there's a few other really important things. In fact, I'll bring up one right now. Stephen York has become a dear friend, an incredible thinker. And so about maybe it was 3 or 4 months ago, while looking at all the elements of society, education and military and corporations and all these different elements, I thought, how do we fundamentally change the currency that we all use, these fiat currencies, this debt instrument? And so I wrote this, basically the primary objectives that I would like to see. And they were, one, to incentivize food production, right? Right now, it's time that we grow food and locally. Number two, it was to scale. We need to replace the fiat currencies around the world in a very short time because they're failing as we speak. We see them failing. They're going down, and this is not by accident or any kind of ignorance. It's by design. Number three, we want to incentivize collaboration. My friends, that is so important. So what we've done, and well, I'll say number four first, is to number four, collaboration, and to incentivize, well, I already said scale. I said food production, scale, collaboration, and deep breath, centered, and shoot. Okay, well, no, that's good. But anyway, this currency is actually born in abundance, a currency that is directly linked to food production, right? That is so important. So when somebody puts food in the ground and commits to ethical production of food, which means no poisons, and the permaculture way, they receive sprouts and yield coin. So we're coming to market with NFTs that are actually productive. Now, we were just talking about, was it the gorilla or what?
The what?
The monkey. There's a monkey NFT that's like,
oh God, the Bored Ape Yacht Club.
The Bored Ape Yacht Club. Oh. NFTs that are like $200,000.
No, 300. So the minimum for a Bored Ape Yacht Club NFT right now, I think, is $380 million or $380,000. So think about this. You have this NFT, you have this digital asset that has nothing tied to it. It is a pure expression of avarice. It's like, look how rich I am. Look at how I'm part of the club. I can buy a Bored Ape. I can put it as my profile picture. What I want to see is I want to see that become a source of humiliation and embarrassment. If you make a choice like that with your resources, you are literally modeling to the world
idiocracy.
That, you lack mental, emotional, and spiritual maturity and awareness. Literally, it's one of the single most embarrassing things you can do. Take that resource and why don't you put it into yield coin?
Yes.
And why don't you actually create a tangible difference for the planet? And that becomes the virtue signaling that we want to support and see more of on the planet.
Yeah. So when you buy one of these NFTs, which will be out shortly, then you'll actually be funding a food forest in the ground. And who owns and controls Sprouts and Yield Coin? The DAO, the people, you do, right? It's an incredible model that's born in abundance. Now imagine most of these currencies now are actually controlled by the gamers and the gamblers of our society, right? This one supplants, and by the way, that's the fourth one, is to supplant the current currencies around the world, the fiats and the digital assets that are born in liability to society. We want to supplant those, and we want to put the essence of the power of our society in the hands of the actual producers of society. It's fundamentally a currency that grows on every level. It grows abundance for our society. If you're interested in this, we have those NFTs. Get a hold of us, foodforestabundance.com, and we'll get you all the details of how you can be involved. And by the way, if you're part of Seeds, if you're part of the hourly time banking, this isn't a competition, right? The competition is with all of us to unite. In fact, we're on Be Sovereign is one of the channels that we're live streaming on. And I want to do a shout out to Sayer G and his incredible team. And they are going to be sharing this with their 300,000 plus followers and or audience of world changers. And Sayer's new channel is called Unite. And that's what this is all about. It's about us uniting, collaborating, and bringing in the different things that we've already done and then creating more. So together we can create the foundation of freedom for our world that lasts and lasts and lasts.
It's brilliant. And it's time. This is one of these things that it's right now. This is not something that we want to think about and do later. No, this is something that a tree was 10 years ago. The next best time to plant a tree is right now. And this is a way that we can start coming together as a community to really create the kind of world that we are passing on to the future generations. This is what it's all about. It's really the moment right now. And so we have this Give, Send, Go campaign. We have this opportunity, and we're asking for a very reasonable amount of money, which is $100 billion, which is
$100 billion with a B.
Yeah, absolutely reasonable. There is so much money out there, and they printed $10 trillion. $100 billion is nothing in the grand scope of things, and it's everything when it comes to the opportunity to fundamentally change the entire landscape of the earth, literally, and of our culture, and of the living legacy that we're passing on to future generations. There is no greater time than right now to be supporting the creation of this resource for the future. So join us in spreading and sharing this message far and wide. Warren Buffett, if you're out there, all of you that have the power and resources, energy, now is the moment where you get to make a choice. Are you going to continue to put your resources into perpetuating a dying, decaying, and completely obsolete system? Or are you going to take the leap and create a living legacy that is going to really tangibly ensure that the energy that you have brought and produced into this world is a living system that is supporting future generations?
Oh, that's so powerful. And I do want to acknowledge a couple more people because we've put together this whole network. We have come together. And Zach with Lemongraft. Oh my gosh, this is another major component to what we're doing. It brings the farmer local. It helps people bring their food to market. Let's say you have one fruit tree and you can only eat maybe 30 or 40 peaches in a season. Now you have an extra 250 peaches. What do you do with those? Lemongraft brings those to market in a way that creates value for you, and it brings everything local, right? And also Dr. Lane, thank you so much for your wisdom with going as a Florida. I'm actually in the process right now of becoming a Florida State National. And also Marcos and Jeff, who talked to us lately. I'm so excited and thankful to work with you. We're going to be working on PMAs, private membership associations, and becoming separated, detached, lawfully speaking, from this corrupt system. So, folks, this is the tip. This is the first live stream.
This is it.
And look at what's already happening.
This is incredible. Literally the first time that we get this amazing group of people together. So we're wrapping the bundle right now. We've only got about a minute left right here. It is my ardent prayer that we can really exponentiate this movement. That this is really, truly just the beginning.
Yes.
And we are the future. We are on the right side of history. And all of you out there are with us. Thank you for being a part of the family. Thank you for being a part of the tribe.
Yes, and if you want to donate some money, it's going to putting food at schools. That's my first most impassioned project is let's put food forests in schools all over the world. And when we do that, they become education centers and nurseries, and you teach pretty much any subject out of a food forest. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Love you. Have an awesome 4th of July.
Mwah.
What do you want to do with this amazing property?
I'll show you.
Okay.
Let's go.
Awesome.
My name is Jim Gale, and for the past 14 years, I've been on a mission to show people how easy it is to grow food instead of lawns.
Well, it's a little bit whiny.
What? Yeah.
Seeds of life right here.
Magic beans.
Magic beans that turn into life. I mean, how much more magical can you get? Look at that. This is like treasure hunting. Holy snaps. Oh, the flavor comes on. My whole mouth is alive.
I closed my eyes so many times and I was like imagining the grapes here, and now I don't have to close my eyes because there are grapes here. We're in a time in a culture in which people feel so disconnected.
Yeah.
And they want to feel like you have place in the world.
Gosh, that's powerful.
And now this bat box has a place.
Yes, it does.
In the last 2 years, more people have chosen to grow food at home than any time in history.
You know, people say that the Garden of Eden is a utopic fantasy when it's the next logical step.
So if you want more abundance, more flavor, more freedom, more energy, join me in the land of plenty.
This is a wild hibiscus. You can actually eat.
Nice. You've been eating all the food. You got to share.
Share, buddy. And check out that leaf. Isn't that amazing?
I mean, I was floating 20 feet off the ground my whole life. I feel like I have something to actually contribute that is not just ego or...
Right. So would you go back?
I can't go back.
Imagine a verdant paradise that stands as a convergence of worlds, a living temple of native wilderness, a place where the full potential of inherent human and earth magic can be seen, felt, and understood, a space that attracts the brightest and best of educators on the leading edge. A place of permaculture designed for the benefit of future generations.